Good evening, friends and family, and thank you for coming to another night with Behind Black Business, sponsored by Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities. This is the year and time and age of technology, and so we're coming on a little late tonight because of that, but we're here. And we have another special guest here tonight, Brian Gorman. Brian is a publisher, and we're so happy Brian took time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Denise. I appreciate being on tonight. So, how you doing tonight?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good.
So I'm doing fine. I'm doing just fine. I'm going with
Great.
the flow. So, a organization, and we're working to support Black businesses in our community because we feel that our Black businesses are the anchor of our community. They're able to provide jobs and serve as role models and give other individuals an opportunity to flourish in their businesses by doing service with people in the community, and ultimately being a Black-owned business and a Black community, we're helping to circulate that dollar. And we have a lot of wonderful Black businesses out here and business people like yourself. And we want our community to be aware of these businesses that we have out here and to support them. And so that's why we have this podcast every week. Also, we have a public policy division where we support our Black bookstores.
Okay.
Reading is very important,
Mhm.
gaining knowledge, and you being a publisher, I know you understand the importance of that. So we feature a Black bookstore on our website every month here in the Chicago area, and we have a book giveaway every month to one of our subscribers. And so I will announce the winner of our book giveaway at the end of the podcast tonight. We also
Okay.
support the Southside Community Federal Credit Union, which is a Black-owned banking institution here on 55th and Wentworth, and they have been in the community and they have been supporting so many people who once weren't able to get loans or not able to get financing for their cars and homes at some of the major banks, and they've been able to help them out. And so we definitely encourage everyone to open up an account at the Southside Community Federal Credit Union, because when you open up an account and put your money in there, that's how that banking institution is able to make money. So we're making Chase and Bank America and Citibank and all these other major banks very wealthy, because most of us have dollars in those banks
Mhm.
to support our own. Brian, I wanted to talk to you as a publisher, because we often have many authors that have come on our show, or I'll hear them on other people's shows. And when you ask them, where can you get their books, they're not in our Black bookstores. They're not dealing with our publishers. And that's why I felt like it was so important to have you on here tonight. And so if you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, the name of your company, to get us started.
Okay. My name is Brian Gorman. Tonight, well, I'll just say this because this is the show that we're on. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I wear a lot of various different hats.
Okay.
Today, I'm representing Gorman House Publishing. we started Gorman House Publishing just so that we can actually let our voices be heard. A lot of people say that our Black voices are muted, and there's no reason for that, especially in the year that we're in now. There are so many avenues to get your word out, and you just have to take the initiative and the strides for it. And so my wife is a poet, and we started with her works. We started
Really?
publishing her works first. And
Okay.
through that process, we learned the publishing process. And
Okay.
then we just started opening it up to other people that have words that we want to see out here. So one of the first books outside of my wife that we published was the Black Agenda. And
Okay.
we published the Black Agenda basically because I have a magazine that we
Mm-hmm.
published that's called the Chicago Community Activism Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spinoff from the Chicago Community Activism Facebook group.
Okay.
And that's an extension of our non-for-profit, which is Custom Resources. And basically what we did, we started that Facebook group to give people an opportunity to actively get involved with things that they see in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty active, and a lot of people that I know call me to find out what's going on, how they can be active in various different ways. And initially, it was a little overwhelming with people calling and just asking, just various questions. Brian, where can I get started with this? Where can I? So I figured that it would be smart for me to start the Facebook group and put all these people that were calling me and asking me, well, where can they find activity? And all the people that I knew that were doing activity, and put those people in that same group so that they can connect. And that was
Okay.
really, that's really how it started, was
Okay.
the build capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up that I started, we started a group in 2014. So it's about 9 years now. And a period of time, I noticed that the same people received same funding.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't really necessarily doing the work for the community. And the same group I saw that were time and time again doing the work, were doing it for love, for out of their pockets, amongst themselves. And it just became kind of upsetting to me. So to change that, I wanted to create for those people that are doing the work. So that included me starting that magazine. So we started the magazine, and we started promoting the various different things that we saw in the community that needed to be publicized. One of them being there was a survivors economy report that was started by an organization called Transformation, EAT as a short. And basically, when you're seeking out funding for any type of situation that's a problem that we quote unquote call a problem, it needs to officially be studied by some type of higher learning institution, like type of college or something like that. Once that study is done, then the problem can be identified, even if we all see the problem. Like, it doesn't matter if we all see the problem. It has to be studied first. So a friend of mine did the survivors economy report with the University of Illinois Chicago, and in that report, it basically economics to the businesses that we don't actually see on the book. So like your loose square man that's selling some loose squares at the corner grocery store, or the lady with the candy store, that everybody knows at the end of the block. Those people aren't accounted into our economy as Black people because they're not passes on that, and there was no study done to show that actually exists. So to start providing federal funding to assist with that needed to be done. So I was so excited to see that the study was done, and then I published it. And at the same time, I was part of the Justice or Else local organizing committee, and I saw the Black Agenda being, formulated, and not necessarily formulated, just kind of kept because it's a document that has been living since I think it was 1860 something that it's the first Black agenda came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so this document out, I've seen it myself.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit, Brian. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay, I can hear you.
But
Can you
yeah,
hear me
yeah,
now?
yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
you're breaking
I'm
up a little
sorry.
bit. Okay,
Okay,
go ahead.
so the National Black Agenda Consortium, they were going around pretty much compiling the Black agenda from all of the various different forms of it. And I had seen it, I've heard them talk about it, but we were trying to create action plans around things that we can do in activism. And I was looking for that plan, even though I knew it existed. I knew um, that there were a lot of people in Chicago that I knew that was working on it. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest issue was that there were so many people on social media saying that it didn't exist when
Mm-hmm.
I knew it existed because I seen it with my own eyes,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know where to find it, and that created a problem. So we I went to a Reven Fellows. He was the first person I approached because
Okay, yeah, no reason.
I knew Reven was part of the National Black Agenda Consortium.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of jumped on Reven, like, hey man, where's this thing at? Why can't we get this thing out here? Why can't we find it? And he said, well, Brian, I mean, it's the people's document. Hold on, it's a siren going by.
Go ahead. It's
Um,
fine.
it's a people's document, so you can publish it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of had some reservations in doing that because I
Mm-hmm.
also know how we are
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And
Sure.
there was probably a good 25 people that worked on that document.
Mm-hmm.
So just publishing it without getting consent from those people just felt wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to get the consent from everyone. And then once I got the
Mm-hmm.
consent, then I published it. So
Okay.
so now it's available.
Mm-hmm.
It's in bookstores. It's also available online at Gorman House Publishing.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that's kind of the story of how that Black agenda came about. But
Oh,
there's so
okay.
many other books that we've published. There's we have the cycles, the 30-day cycles of gratitude by Vanessa Bolden Beaver. Um,
Okay.
she did that, and that's so that we can kind of start training our minds to be more grateful for the things that we see. I mean,
Sure.
and those things that we try to do has to be done by example.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't talk about things that we're not willing to do ourselves, or at least
Okay.
show. And
Okay.
that's what we use the publishing company for, to kind of amplify people's voices and
Okay.
give them some credence out here so that people can say that we do have value and we do have things that we need to talk about and our stories need to be heard. And it's very important to me that we get that out there, like our voices, and amplify them, because we are marginalized in so many different ways. And and it seems like all hands on deck.
And there's one way to look at it in terms of us being marginalized. But as I talk to different business people out here, it's about creating relationships.
Absolutely.
This is a part of our culture that we do things. It might be a business. You're making money off of it, but those people that have been in there for a long time and that have been successful have learned that what's important is about building relationships. And so
Absolutely.
you started your business off of establishing relationships with people in your community and looking at a need that needed to be filled. And when we think about publishers, most people don't think about Black publishers. And so I wanted to talk about the I want to talk about publishing and Black people in the industry.
Hmm.
Um, first of all, what is a publisher? How would you define a publisher?
Well, a publisher is basically the person that brings the art form, if it's written or if it's,
Mm-hmm.
music, it's just bringing that actual music or song or book or whatever to fruition. So we're the person
Mm-hmm.
that actually makes it exist. Um,
Okay.
it starts off with a thought, then it becomes a written thing based off of the author or the artist or whoever it is, and then it needs business behind it so that it can reach the consumer. And that's what publishers do. They become the business behind that product to make sure that it reaches the consumer.
Okay. So you're dealing with poetry, you're dealing with books, that people write, you're dealing with
I mean,
magazines.
yes, and then we're
Yeah.
also dealing with beats too. I mean, if you want to get into the whole thing, we're doing that as well. So those, I mean, it's really around the arts, and it's about
Uh-huh.
putting that music and that written word out is really important. It's just production more than anything. It's about production and producing and making sure that things are tangible and they exist. And that's
So so who should contact a publisher? Who should be reaching out to contact a publisher?
well, people with final finished product. That's the most important thing. I mean,
Hmm.
own your craft. That's really important. Fine tune your work a few times before you reach out to a publisher, because a publisher really wants to deal with finished product. I mean, and that's
Hmm.
the real truth. And I mean, some of that finished product does mean, helping get the cover designed or, those types of things. But for the most part, um, our goal is to take a finished product and get it at
Hmm.
least as a small business. Now, a large
Okay.
publisher has editors and all of those things at their disposal.
Hmm.
Um, but what they end up doing is they take all of that off of the cost of production for your book.
Sure.
So that means that when you go to make your money, it's usually taken off the top,
Hmm.
whatever costs that are incurred. So you end up with larger companies getting smaller splits based on the fact that they put more money behind your product.
Hmm.
So it creates a different kind of industry when you start talking about large publishing, because a lot of times large publishers are pariahs, and and their whole goal is to make as much money as possible. But um, in my case, it's not necessarily about the money. I mean,
Sure.
money is a added benefit, obviously, but my splits that I do are really, really advantageous to the authors, um,
Okay.
because, like I said in the beginning, I'm a serial entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily need to make all my money in one spot.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this particular thing is more for me about getting people's words out here, because that's important. I just don't want to necessarily pay for it, which is why the profit part makes sense. But
Okay, so there's this concept called ghost writer,
yes,
right?
yes.
Um, I've had people, approach me at times and say, I'm looking at some of the things that you've done. You should write a book, blah blah. And I'm like, oh, I haven't sat down and been journaling and writing things like that. And so they said, well, you could get a ghost writer.
Mhm.
So what would a ghost writer do?
Well, a ghostwriter actually writes your story in your stead. So
Mm-hmm.
so basically a ghostwriter would act as if they were you. They would sit down with you and interview you to get all the nooks and crannies of your life that you want to
Uh-huh.
actually be publicized, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
they would write it, but
Mm-hmm.
they would write it and they would say that it was written by Denise Heatherton,
Okay.
right? But they wrote it. And
Okay.
only you and that author and whoever else is in between knows that, and you pay them for the right to do that. So um, think about if Alex Haley decided to do that for the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been written by Malcolm X. We wouldn't have known, right?
Okay.
But Alex Haley wrote it and put it in his name. but in today's times, it would have came out as Malcolm X autobiography by Malcolm X, and Alex Haley wouldn't have never been known. He would have just been behind the scenes as the writer. He would have
Gotcha.
got paid for it still. He would have got
Sure.
his publishing, his credits, everything that he was supposed to get as the writer, but nobody in the public would know that he wrote it.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that's what a ghostwriter does. So like, and then they have certain things that they do where it's called ghost content. So you have a lot of writers that um, that don't write their articles. So like, you know how you have people that are blogging all the time, or
Mm-hmm.
they're putting
Mm-hmm.
out like every 3, 4, 5 times a week, they're sending out a new blog. A lot
Sure.
of that stuff is ghost content.
Mm.
So it's already written for you. You just put your name on it.
Okay.
But in the publishing industry, that's usual. It's just like, you know, in the song world, it's the same thing. You know, think about how many people sing songs, but they didn't write them.
Mm-hmm.
But people give credit to the singer as the writer because they don't necessarily understand the business. But most of the time, it's written by somebody else, and those people never are seen by the public. You know, it's the same principle.
Okay. Okay. So do you if somebody wanted to write a book, and they came to you and they hadn't written their book, do you deal with ghost writers?
I
Do
mean,
you
I
do
do.
that, or do you do that yourself?
I don't have time to ghostwrite, but
No.
I do know. I know writers that will ghostwrite for people, but they're not cheap. So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a cost thing. So most writers that are independent writers are also they don't have a large budget.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, ghostwriting is a very expensive process because
Really?
it's a minimal of $25 a page,
Okay.
right? And then most books are 100 pages plus. So you can
Okay.
see how that can get to be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for a student writer.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So
Not a professional,
that's
huh?
not even somebody that you know has some accolades behind their name. So you can imagine how it can be an expensive process. So ghostwriting is not usually something that I tell people about because it's just so cost prohibitive.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's still something that if you want to do it, I mean, it's there. It's an option for you. Just know that you better break your piggy bank.
Okay. Okay. Well, I see, an opening for possibility, for other people that might that are good writers that might consider
Oh,
doing something
absolutely.
like that,
It's
and maybe not
absolutely
charge as much and.
it's absolutely a lucrative thing if you can find the customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really the thing. It's like presenting yourself to the people that have the opportunity to hire your services. And that becomes a job in itself because there are a lot of writers, you know, and people don't know good writing. So they'll say, my cousin can write.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you know what I mean. My cousin can write. She gonna write it for me. And then your cousin writing is not the best, but it's better than you would have done. So you accept it, you know.
Okay.
So it's a lot of times I see, you know, me personally, I don't really knock people's work. I just tell them
Mm-hmm.
they need a little bit more help, and then I'll steer them to the places that they can go get that help. But I won't say their work is bad or they have a lot of mistakes or anything like that because you know you need to be encouraged and not discouraged. So
So you as a publisher, do you look for people, or are people looking for you? How's that
uh,
usually working?
honestly, myself personally, I just move. I don't really look for
Mm-hmm.
anybody, and you know, and I'm not necessarily putting myself out there as a publisher
Mm-hmm.
to publish people's
Mm-hmm.
work, right?
Okay.
So most of the time, it just becomes something that I feel is divine in
Mm-hmm.
how it comes to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, that's how it ends up working. So like as an example, I'm about to publish Dr. Frazier's books. I know you know
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Frazier, but Dr. Frazier also is one of the people from the Black Agenda. So she wrote part of that. And then she called me and said, Brian, I want to republish my books. Can you publish it? Well, absolutely. I know how. I have the skill set. I have the ability. I have the lines to do it. It's just, how can I tell Dr. Frazier no?
Okay.
Like, that's Dr. Frazier. And I know that
Okay.
whatever she wrote is going to be fire, right?
Okay.
So therefore, I didn't go and ask Dr. Frazier. She has some books. I didn't ask. It's just natural. Just like how I met you, Denise. It's just a natural thing, and God moves in ways that we don't even know and see, and put us together with people that we don't even know the blessing that we're receiving from it. Just like, that meeting that I had with you, I didn't know I'd be on this podcast. So that, that's ways that God moves that we just don't have any way of seeing.
So when you hire a publisher, what all can I expect that you would do?
Well, actually, it depends on a publisher. I mean, most publishers can't be hired. Partly because we're putting out the works that we want to put out. So we're looking more than anything for the work that we're going to publish in traditional forms. I'm not a traditional publisher in that regard. But that's usually how it works. We find people solicit us to put their work out. Or we find something that, is endearing to us some kind of way and we want to put it out. But for the most part, there's no seeking out publishers and asking them to do anything per se.
To do anything.
Right. It's just, do you like my stuff and can you put it out? And then once you get that, it's the deal. Like, what are you going to offer that artist or that author for putting out that work?
So what kind of things would you offer?
Well, for me per se, like with me, like I'm not a traditional publisher, so my deals are a little different than most. But for me, I charge a little bit over cost for printing per book. And then I put everything online for them. I put up their pages and everything for them. And then I split, profit with them on online orders. And then I don't take anything off of what they order and sell themselves personally. So if you order 10 books, 20 books, 30 books, and then you sell those 20, 30 books for whatever you sell them for, that's your money. That's not that. I don't have anything to do with that. If it comes through the website, I usually take a percentage off of the sale, and then I, kick it back to them. So that's mostly what publishers do. They have some type of percentage that they give an offer based upon, if they're putting it in, say you're putting it in all the bookstores in the country, then that's going to be a large cost associated with printing all those books. So, now I have, 1 million books that are out there. Now I need to recoup that $1 million worth. That 1 million books cost. So that's, say it's $5 a book. I need to get $5 million back before you start seeing anything. So if your book flops and it doesn't sell, you won't ever see anything.
Wow.
Right. So that's how it works. I need to, they call that recouping their dollars. They have to recoup their dollars first. So if I start doing commercials for you, if I start doing ads in papers and newspapers and stuff like that, if I put up billboards, all of that is added to the cost of those books and everything else. So I'm getting that back first. That's how publishers usually act when it comes down to their music or their books or whatever. That's what it comes back to. They need to get their money back first, and then you'll start seeing money, and that'll be based off of a split. That might be.
Do you set up book signings?
I mean, I can. I just,
Is that part of publishers?
I mean,
I don't want to say responsibilities.
It can be, because I mean, it comes back to, it's a partnership essentially, right? So if you look at it from the nuts and bolts of business, it would behoove me to make sure that you are as far out there as possible so that people can purchase your books. Purchasing your books will enrich me, right? So therefore, if I set up book signings and things like that, it will give notoriety to you so that you can sell more books.
Okay.
So it all becomes a budget thing. It comes back to the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Is it cost effective for me to set up a book signing for you and you don't sell any books, or you might sell some books, or you maybe not,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a risk. And so you start weighing your risk versus the reward.
Okay.
And if the risk is greater than the reward, then it's on the author to set that up.
Okay.
If the reward's greater, then it would behoove me to make sure that you're out there,
Okay.
right? So it also depends on how famous the author is, because if the
Mm-hmm.
author is famous enough and they have a following and people know who they are, then it would be smart to make sure that they're in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
That author is in front of their people, which means that they may have to get an investment for me to do that, right? But if people don't know who that author is, but they have good work, it makes it harder as a small business because it's a larger lift. Now I need to make sure that people know who you are, which means that now I need to do PR work, which means that I need to bring in my publicist to work on you, which means I have to pay them to do the work for you, right? Then we have to design flyers and posters and all of those things, which means I have to bring a designer in. I got to pay for website addresses. All of that stuff starts getting that list
Expensive.
of it starts getting expensive, right?
Expensive.
So if I don't know if you're going to sell a lot of books, is it smart for me to spend all my money? It's really not, right? So it's almost like you take a chance and then they have to show and prove, you
So
know?
what's the deal with people going to Amazon?
Well, Amazon allows self-publishing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they take a hefty percentage though, which is,
Yeah, that's what I hear.
I mean, I have books on Amazon as well. We
Mm-hmm.
put our books on Amazon, but to be perfectly honest, that's just so that people can get them if they look at Amazon.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because the truth is, I'm not sending anybody to go get my book from Amazon because I
Okay.
don't make that much money off of a book from Amazon, an Amazon sale rather. So as a result of that, I have to kind of um, sit back and kind of like weigh, is it important to have this book on Amazon? And most of the time it's not. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it does give you credibility, right? Because people will look at it and say, you're not on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're not credible,
Oh, okay.
right? So it becomes a credibility thing, which means that's why it needs to be on Amazon. But at the same time, you don't make money on Amazon. They take all your
Is the credibility factor because of Amazon's criteria, or
well,
is that
well, it's not that. It's just the way people buy books now.
okay?
It's like if you're promoting something, the first thing that people need to do is go be able to buy it at the store.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to buy it at the store that you're buying from, right? So if you're a Target, I mean not Target, well Target either, but if you're a Target or Amazon or Walmart or you one of those kind of shoppers,
Mm-hmm.
if you're thinking about my book, hopefully you could just say, I need some of this and let me grab this book.
Mm-hmm.
So availability is very important when you're talking about sales,
Okay.
So Amazon is important because of the availability. So
Okay. Yeah, because I've talked to some people who had books that they said they were publishing. I guess they had their own names on there that as the publishers, but the books were available at Amazon. But then trying to get the book, a copy of the book, they didn't have any copies available.
mhm.
Um, so if it goes on Amazon, don't they have to have so many copies on there if we're looking at availability?
Well, it depends on the fulfillment. With Amazon, they have two ways of selling books. One of them being you're actually fulfilling the book, which means
Mm-hmm.
that if you get an order, then you send the book out. And then they have their own warehousing, um, where you have to actually send them so many copies, and then they warehouse it, and then they send it out. Um, in that case, they take even more
Mm,
of a
okay.
percentage, but that's when it's not available. But they're
Okay.
also taking a chance on you because if you sell the book and then you don't send it out, then now Amazon is the culprit, right?
Okay.
So it still becomes that gray area of who's actually fulfilling it. And it goes back to, is it important? Because a lot of times those authors realize they don't make any money and
Mm-hmm.
they don't send any more product to Amazon, but Amazon
Okay.
still has you listed. But after you sold 20, 30 books and you say, hey, the check is $10, you're like, I don't know if I really want to keep selling on Amazon, you know.
Okay.
And that's what, a lot of authors, they realize that after the fact and they say, you know what, I'm not fulfilling it. Um, but
So
again,
is it better? There's well, I guess there's pros and cons on either side, but if you were to
mhm.
compare, they'd be better maybe going with a smaller publisher.
Well, they would be better going with a smaller publisher, but at the same time, it's still the same thing. So like for me, you can buy all of my books at Gorman House Publishing.com,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where I would receive the biggest percentage.
Okay.
But you can also go to Amazon.com and get that book too. And I
Mm-hmm.
won't receive that much. But it all depends on how you found me.
But what about the
It's-
author?
Well, the same thing with the author is a split. So we're splitting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
so it depends on how you find us. Um, if you find us on Amazon, through Amazon, we're not going to get too much money,
Okay.
right? But if you find us through Gorman House Publishing, everybody eats. you know,
Okay.
so, so it depends on how it works. And so if you are looking for, something that I'm pushing out, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
get it from Gorman House Publishing because it's firsthand coming from me.
Okay.
Right. But if you are just on Amazon surfing around looking for something and you tag out something that just so happened to be similar to a book that I have, then you might get that from Amazon and I won't get that much. But at the same time, I didn't even bring you to the sale, Amazon.
Okay. So
So
how long have you been doing this?
I think the first book we published was in 2009, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you've
2009.
been out here for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it was a slow process. I mean, the first book we published, it took us 2 years to publish the next one. So it wasn't like we just threw out all these books, but now I'm probably at 15 books in.
Now, did you go through any kind of training to do this? Any kind of formal training?
Um, Not officially, kind of, yes, because
Mm-hmm.
when in college I started a newspaper.
Okay.
Um, and that newspaper was turned into a magazine. So, and then through that, I got some mentors, and those
Mm-hmm.
mentors was like Lorenzo Martin from the Standard newspapers. He had
Mm-hmm.
Chicago Standard and the South Suburban Standard, and Mr. Bill Garth, rest his soul, for the Citizen newspaper.
Sure.
They all kind of like was they was impressed with me being a young guy out here trying to
Mm-hmm.
publish. So they poured into me in ways that I couldn't even really say.
Wow.
Um, and
That's beautiful.
they gave me a lot of insight, into the publishing game itself,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
that necessarily wasn't my passion at the time. Um,
Okay.
and so I just kind of like soaked all that stuff up as a sponge, just
Mm-hmm.
to put it in my back pocket for later. So when it
Okay.
was time to come back, I was a English tutor in college, and things like that. So I'm a pretty good
Okay.
writer myself.
Okay.
So we just started off with doing, just like I said, publishing my wife's work, and she's a poet. So, poetry doesn't take that much of editing and stuff like that because it's your words, it's how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a lot of behind the scenes editing work that was being done at
Okay.
that time. It was just publishing the poetry books. Um, but it wasn't until we started doing pieces like what is Monique's book's name? Surviving COVID. She had a book. A friend
Mm-hmm.
of ours did a book about COVID, and in that book, we had to do a little bit of editing work for that. Um,
Okay.
but those types of things we didn't necessarily count on. But again, we're growing because
Mhm.
God has a plan. It's not necessarily my plan per se
Okay.
all the way,
Okay.
but you have to go where you're being led.
Sure. Sure.
And on the publishing side, we're publishing a lot more this year than we published last year.
Okay.
And the goal is to publish a lot more next year than we did this year. So um, growth is important. And it really comes back to what I was saying about making sure that our voices are heard. Um,
Absolutely.
and we do this with magazine work, but I also have a podcast studio. Uh,
Mhm.
and it's the same thing there. I mean, the whole goal of that studio is to amplify the voices of our people that are
Absolutely.
usually not able to say things, or at least say it the way they want to say it, you know,
Okay.
and then have a high quality production, because I am from the music industry. I have been
Mhm.
doing production for years. Um,
Okay.
so that's kind of one of those things that is second nature to me, events and
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff. So, God has blessed me, and it has allowed me to bless others at the same time.
Are there a lot of black publishers out here?
No, it's not.
No.
It's not a lot of black publishers. I mean, there are a lot of self-published people, um,
Okay.
but it's not a lot of black publishers. And the publishers that I do know are doing their own works. They're not necessarily reaching out for others
Mhm.
to publish other people's work. Um, and I don't know, I can't really speak as to why, because once you have the skill set and the knowledge to do so, you should probably, pass that on to others, so that we can all be greater. But,
Now,
everybody.
I mentioned earlier about the bookstores. We used to have 22 black bookstores in Chicago,
Right.
and they fizzled out. We were down to two. We do have a resurgence
Hmm.
of black bookstores now. On the west side, on the south side, on the north side, we got some more bookstores, popping up, brick
Hmm.
and mortars,
Hmm.
actually. And then like Underground Bookstore over on 87th Street, they've been
Hmm.
there for,
Forever.
yeah, forever.
Hmm.
And I was told that most of the publishers at that time were from the Caribbean,
Hmm.
which I found interesting, you
Hmm.
know, to know that we have all these books here in bookstores here in Chicago, but most of the publishers were from the Caribbean.
Yeah, I mean, a
Why?
lot. Well, it
Because even Sekou, who's owns Frontline,
hmm
he does publishing.
publishing. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
Sekou does. Absolutely. But the thing about, I don't know, it's one of those things that you have to believe it, so you can achieve it.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of times we fall victim to the obstacles, right? And so
Hmm.
we believe that the barriers are greater than our ability to overcome them.
Hmm.
So as a result of that, we don't even try. And that's the real truth. Like, a lot of people that I've talked to that want to get into publishing, has they've created this to be something that's even bigger than it actually is. You've if you take a step, you realize that you're a step closer, right?
Hmm.
But a lot of people won't even take the step because they realize that, well, because they think that it's just too far of a walk. But
Hmm.
if you keep taking steps, the next thing you know, you've arrived.
Huh.
And so people don't take the steps because they're looking at how long the trip may be. But the reality is we'll never get there if we don't take the step.
That's
And
right.
so
That's right.
so that's the biggest issue when it comes to black publishers, is that we don't necessarily see the route as being an easy one,
Hmm.
or that, just like the barrier of entry is kind of high.
Hmm.
Me personally, I went a different route. So, and that's because I didn't know how to go a different route. but it's really expensive when you start thinking about publishing books, and I want to have it in all these stores. And and me being a serial entrepreneur, I kind of make smart decisions when it come down to what costs am I going to incur and which ones I'm not going to incur.
Sure.
And so when it comes to like the publishing game, I started really small,
Mm-hmm.
and that ability to kind of scale up and down is imperative to growth, because the biggest thing that people don't realize in business is that growth will kill you faster than anything
Mm-hmm.
if you can't
Mm-hmm.
sustain it.
Sure.
So if you start growing so fast that you
Absolutely.
can't fulfill your orders, or you start giving people half product because it's not as you don't have time to put the same amount of
That's
care and
right.
effort
That's
into it,
right. That's
then
right.
people will stop working with you.
That's
They'll
right.
stop coming to you, and they're unforgiving, especially with Black people. Black people are very unforgiving with other Black people. So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like they're looking for a reason for not to work with you,
Sure.
right? And
Sure.
so the moment that you give them one, then you've already shot yourself in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to sustain growth incrementally so that you don't get into a situation where you have more business than you can sustain, because
That's right.
then you're out of it. Even though that's what most people wish for, is to have all this business. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, you only want the amount of business you can
That's right.
sustain.
That's right. I can attest to that, with the organization here, and it's really about the journey, you know.
Mhm.
And we can take time, and you're learning so much, and you're picking up so much as you go. I think when you go too fast, you run past uh, a lot of very important things,
Yes.
very important. It's just like the book called Mufaro's Daughters. I don't know if you ever read that book. It was a
No,
book
no,
about,
but
it was called Mufaro's Daughters, and the daughters were the king wanted a wife for his the king wanted a wife for his son,
okay.
and all the young women in the village were going there to marry him, and or hoping that he would choose them. And the one daughter that was just, she was going to run ahead of everybody else, and she missed, she passed, she didn't pass the test because she was running so fast.
Okay.
So many things, so many different things happen. But yeah, we have to learn to appreciate the journey.
Mhm.
And so many people said you can't chase the dollar. You put in the work, and the money will come,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
So that's very important. So I had a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. Um, as a publisher, what are some qualities that you need to have as a publisher you think would be good qualities for a person that's going to go into this field?
Attention to detail. You have to be
Mhm.
someone that has attention to detail, because um, you can miss a lot if you don't pay attention. There's so many different little intricacies, like getting the ISBN numbers and getting registered, and all of these little things on paperwork side that you have to take care of, that if you
Mhm.
don't, it'll be detrimental in the long run to your author or to your business. You know,
Mhm.
as an example, if you don't make sure that the work that you're publishing is their work, you'll get sued, right?
Wow.
Right. So imagine if I took your work, Denise, and then I published it under my name,
Mhm.
right? You're gonna come see me. You're gonna send those lawyers to come see me.
Ah,
And at the end of the day, you have to, as a publisher, if you're publishing other people's work, you have to know that it's their work.
that's right.
So it's all of those types of due diligence that you have to have, and that really comes from that attention to detail, and being able to pay attention to the things that are around. And then after that, you have to know a good story. I mean, you,
Mhm.
you really have to know what's good work, or what people need to hear, or what they need to see. And
Mhm.
and And some of that becomes a personal choice, and then some of it is a feeling of a demand. You know, right now we're in a situation where everyone's talking about trauma,
Mhm.
and how Black people need to be healed and all of those things. So I'm
Mhm.
on the a hunt for someone that's writing books about trauma healing,
Okay.
because that's something that we need to be talking about. That's something that needs to be out there. And that's something that I don't see, not necessarily coming directed towards us in
Right.
our particular, situations. And that's something that I would like to bring to fruition. That's a
Mhm.
personal thing, but that's
Mhm.
also something that's filling a demand. So as a publisher, you have to be able to identify these types of trends and being able to step into the stead of that hole,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
once there's something that you see is missing, you have to figure out how to fill it.
That's right. That's right.
And that's as any good business person, but that's also as a publisher. From looking at a publishing lens, we're talking about filling the gaps of what's not there in the marketplace for literary works, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
as I mean, I might look at it for who's not selling ices. You know, Nobody has red ices. So I need to go out here and sell red ices, because in the Black community, red ices are the best, right?
Okay. Okay.
So, as a business person, you still make those same choices as to, where you want to put your attention, where you want to put your resources. But at the end of the day, you still have to be able to sustain yourself. And that's
Okay.
that's where, that balance comes in, because you can get something that's great, but if it won't sell, then you can't feed your family, and that's important too.
Now you're definitely, I think, serving as a mentor, um, in terms of the service to the community. Are you able to create work opportunities for other people um, in your field, or is most of the work done? Are you doing most of the having to do most of the work?
Well and well that's a dual question for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I answered, as a publisher, I don't have that many people working with me. It's
Okay.
me and the authors that I work with and my
Mm-hmm.
wife. That's it. So it might be 7 of us total.
Okay.
And most of it from the author side is them actually writing their work. But overall, in general, because I am a serial entrepreneur, yes, I hire a lot of people. And then I do a lot of community service based upon the work that we do. And I try to tie all of it together, so we're not, how they say that if you can run through a turnstile, everybody at the same time, we can get through. That's what I'm trying to do,
That's
instead
what
of
you're
us
trying
trying
to
to go
do.
one at a time. I'm trying to make sure we all get through that at the same time. So I try to make the best decisions to hit 4 or 5 birds with one stone,
Okay.
um, and help as much as I can with as many people as I can.
Okay.
So with that being said, I've hired up to 100 people to work at a time.
Okay.
Um, you know, um, and right now we're doing festivals and stuff that we're gearing up for the summer. So we're about to start hiring again.
Okay.
So these things but that's a different hat. That's a whole different hat. We talk about cleaning and security and
Ah.
event and festival production. Like, that's a whole different, ball game.
Okay. Okay.
And
Serial entrepreneur. I like that term.
yes. So with that being said, maybe another time we could talk about that business, because
Yeah.
that's a different hat.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
but today we're focused on literature and literary arts, and
Absolutely.
making sure that we get our words out here, because the other
Mm-hmm.
side, another one of the nonprofit initiatives that we do, and I partner with my nonprofit with this particular, the Gorman House Publishing, is that we put little lending libraries throughout the city, so that there are works that people can get. So we have our books in there, and then there's also just, donated books, so that we can increase literature and
Mm-hmm.
literary arts in the community, at least,
Mm-hmm.
the access to, because we can't always get to our libraries the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started it, it was during a time when the libraries had shortened hours, and they weren't open on certain days. they've changed that since then, but that's when we started because it'd be closed on a Tuesday to go to the library, and that's not kind of great for kids, right?
Sure.
So so that's why we started, doing those types of things. So it's important to make sure that we increase our literary ID.
That's right.
Make sure that we're understanding that the written word is important, and that TV isn't everything.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
And there's so much you can learn. I tell the students, I'm a speech pathologist, and I tell students about reading. I talk to parents, about reading, and I tell them can learn, you know, historically and about what's happening today, what's projected for the future. And I said, and books can take you places that you may never go,
absolutely,
or take you places that you may aspire to go. I know
absolutely.
just from looking at a book on the Maasai tribe one day, I was looking at that book and I was so, enthralled with what I was seeing. I said, I want to go to Africa one day. I was very young, but I remember looking at that book and turning the pages and
Hmm.
reading. And I ended up going, to Africa a number of times. I actually got a chance to go visit the Maasai tribe.
Okay, okay,
And so, there's just so much, there in reading.
yeah.
And we have to do more of that. And there are a lot of our people, just like I say, I have this podcast because we got a lot of people out here reading. We have a lot of people out here doing a lot of wonderful things
Hmm.
in our community, and we're just not aware of it all. So this is
Absolutely.
just to help enhance the awareness of it, is why we have this podcast, because we archive all of our interviews on the website, so anybody can go back and read, or watch and
Hmm.
listen to the stories of the people, the wonderful people that we have here in Chicago, because Chicago is a hot city.
Man, Chicago is the best city.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the
so
best
I
city.
mean, we got our reputation for things going on, but as I
Yeah,
get
but
out
that's
here and
what
talk to
makes us,
people,
right? Because
yeah,
because it creates so much diversity in who we are and such resilience because
hmm,
we are what they call ground zero. Everything is done here,
that's
you know.
right, that's
So
right,
so they test out all the things they're trying to do. They test it here first. So if we
that's right.
so we're survivors. That's
Oh my goodness. So, what are your plans for the future? With your
Oh,
business?
just to keep uplifting Black folks, that's really it. And to
Okay.
keep, providing opportunities and a voice for our people because, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we need it. And, what do they say? With much ability is much responsibility. I feel like
Sure.
I got a lot of responsibility because God has blessed me with the ability to do so much and to touch so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's my gift. My gift is connection. I'm able to connect people together and also see something in my mind, visualize it, and then
Mm-hmm.
execute it.
That's
Um,
right.
so, I believe that whatever I can think, I can actually do. And
That's
so
right.
I would like to represent that for others. I like people to believe that in themselves, and I like people to be more grateful. And I wish I could just, you know, exude that.
Okay.
So in the future,
Mm-hmm.
that's literally all I'm gonna do is make sure that I do those things for our people so that I can be an example. I know for a long time, I used to hide myself, because I know being where we are,
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a lot of people that don't want to see you succeed. And in that success, they'll see the things that you're doing and they'll try
Mm-hmm.
to block them or stop them. So
Mm-hmm.
for a good 20 years of my life, I've hidden so that I could, what do they say, cook and get better and get
Okay.
and become stronger and be more confident in myself and my skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now I believe that I'm kind of ready to
Okay.
to show these things and show that existence and to be a beacon.
Sure.
A good friend of mine, she cussed me out when she was
Oh,
cussing me out because she said, Brian, who are you to block block God's plan by
Mm-hmm.
being a beacon that people can see.
That's
You
right.
know, you hiding yourself is really being disrespectful. And I never thought about it like that, because I was trying to do me, but um, that touched me. And
Yeah.
it kind of woke me up, and it was like, I do know a lot. I have done a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. I've experienced more than most, and that has value. And if I don't show others, then what am I really here for?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Wow. So Brian, how can people get in touch with you if somebody has, I guess, a book they might or want to have you take a look at, or if they want to be on your podcast, or take advantage of some of your
Well,
serial entrepreneurial
well, Denise, you're gonna have
services
me
that you
running off
have.
all these websites. So if you want publishing work and
There
you're
you go.
looking for publishing work, I would go to www.gormanhouse.com. Gorman spelled Gorman, like my name down here,
Mm-hmm.
gormanhouse.com. If you're looking for podcast work, www.bronzevillepodcaststudio.com.
Okay.
If you're interested in hip hop, I have a museum. That's the Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Museum. That's www.chhh dot. I mean, it's three H's. chhhm.com.
Now,
So
where's the museum?
it's in Bronzeville.
That's in Bronzeville. Okay.
Yes, and that's the same place. The studio is actually located in the museum, the podcast studio.
Okay.
Um, Now, if you're looking for festival production, rental equipment, sound equipment,
Hmm.
marketing and promotions, look at www.enterthecity.com. That's diverse city. That's my marketing company. That's where we do most of the work under. And if it's political season like it is now, we do www.firstplacecampaigns, spelled out first, FIRST, place campaigns. Um, and I mean that's a good entree into some of the stuff that we do, but
Yeah.
that's not the whole rabbit hole, but it's good enough. So,
Okay.
so
I think it's great.
thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for all of this wonderful information. I want to thank you for what you are doing. You are providing a great service to the community. And somebody's watching you. And so you are being a beacon of light, to other people. You just never know. People watch what you do more than they listen to what you say a lot of times, because it's a lot of talking out here.
Yeah, yeah, and
But
that's the one thing I don't like is talk.
yeah,
I like it. I like to do.
yeah. It's time for action.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think what you're doing is wonderful. And so I did say, we have a book giveaway,
Okay,
and the book that we gave in the book joint that's located at 330 East 51st in Boxville.
okay,
There our bookstore of the month, and she selected From My Life, Michael K. Williams. He played
okay.
in The Wire, and he passed
Hmm.
away. I think it was in
Yeah, absolutely.
2021. Yeah, and so that's the book that is being given away this month. And our winner is Rochelle Lilly. And Rochelle, I will be calling you, and we pay for the book. If it has to be shipped, we will ship it. We try to get you into the bookstore to go and pick it up. But whichever way is going to work best for you, that's what we will do. But that's our contribution uh, to the community as far as helping our bookstores. So yeah, that's our bookstore of the month. That's our book of the month, and the winner is Rochelle Lilly. So we
Congratulations,
ask that
Rochelle.
you go to rrgbc.org. You can watch this podcast and all of the other podcasts that we've had. We've done over 90 podcasts now. And you can also go to our online store. You can make a purchase that helps us and make donations, and keep up with what we're doing. We have fought to help keep some businesses open. We've been successful. We've helped some businesses get websites, And right now, we're asking you also to go to change.org, and it's Save Black Bookstores in Chicago at change.org. Save Black Bookstores in Chicago at change.org. We want our local libraries and our public schools to give contracts to our local Black bookstores. And that is nothing unheard of, because it happens in other municipalities, and that would help our bookstores out tremendously. So that is that's part of our public policy division, and an area that we're going to be working on. And our directory will be out very soon. So we'll have all our bookstores, all of our Black businesses. We'll have you in there, Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
Gorman Publishing will be on there. And so that's something else that we're working on. So again, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Our show did start a little late because of technical difficulties, but hey,
Got it done.
got it done.
Thank you,
All
Denise.
right.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a blessing that you're doing this for other Black businesses, and just in general, just for our people. This is important. Thank you, Denise.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Everybody have a good night.